Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's roundtable. Today, we will dive into a very exciting topic, strategic misalignment in L&D, bridging the gap between learning operations and business impact. This session is eligible for HRCI, SHRM, and ATD professional development credits. For those of you who aren't familiar with Brandon Hall Group, we are a leading research and analyst firm with a global reach of over 10,000 clients and over 30 years of experience. We provide research-based solutions that drive organizational excellence through innovative tools and insights. Our vision is to inspire better workplace experiences, and our mission is to empower organizations around the world through our research and tools each and every day. Here is a sample of our clients. Our impact extends to over 10 million employees and executives through our comprehensive research library, strategic insights, and prestigious awards program. We also invite you, as always, to participate in our research studies. Links will be available in your handout, or you can always visit brandonhall.com. Once the results are analyzed, all participants receive a piece of complimentary research and other exclusive benefits. If you want to learn more about our Excellence Awards, please visit excellenceawards.brandonhall.com. Brandon Hall Group Institute is the top research and Insights Institute serving learning, talent, and HR leaders worldwide. For over 3 decades, we've shaped the future of human capital management by providing essential research, certification, and recognition to organizations committed to excellence. A big thank you to today's roundtable sponsor, Cognota. Cognota is where learning and talent operations meet business performance. As the full stack operating system for LearnOps, we help teams align strategy, streamline workflows, and measure ROI faster, smarter, and with greater impacts. Now let's meet today's speakers. First, we have Ryan Austin, founder and CEO of Cognota, Matt Mason, SVP, Director of Talent Operations at Truist, Alan Mellish, Principal Analyst at Brandon Hall Group. Now we are excited to share that at the end of today's roundtable, we will be selecting 2 raffle winners. Stay tuned to see if you are the lucky winner. You must be present to win. Now, just a few quick things to note. If you have any questions during the roundtable, please use the questions panel on your control bar. We'll be answering them throughout the session. We're also recording today's roundtable, and you'll receive an email within 24 hours with a link to the recording and a PDF of the slides. The chat box is open, so please feel free to share your thoughts as we go along. Your input makes this more valuable for everyone. Now I would like to pass things off to Alan.
Thank you very much, Ivy, and welcome once again, everybody. And here's a brief snapshot of how we're going to spend our time today. This is a roundtable discussion, so we're going to be heavy on the discussion, a little bit lighter on some of the data, but we are going to, I'll be sharing a few data points at the beginning from Brandon Hall Research to set the table and kind of kick things off, and then we'll dive right in with looking at how to build strategic alignment, operational excellence, and then also the opportunity to talk about some success stories and lessons learned. I do have it on good authority, aka me, that this is a pretty fun group. So we're looking forward to having a really lively discussion, and we've got some poll questions today as well. So your opportunity to participate in that discussion is obviously by answering the polls early and often. And then also, as Ivy mentioned before, we do have the Q&A and the chat available as well for you to share your thoughts and ask your questions as well. We're going to try and save most of the Q&A for the end, but of course, if something comes up that I really want to get to, I will throw it our panelists' way live and see what they have for you. So without further ado, I'm going to move into our topic. So one of the things we're really talking about here is today's learning and development function, looking at the way it's set up strategically from a strategic point of view, and then also in sort of the operational, like how is it set up to work? How is it measured? How does feedback get collected and received and internalized? How is it measured to improve performance? We really feel like it's if you're here on this webinar, you're probably also thinking about the way that L&D is not completely aligned with the business in the way that it could be or should be. So a brief look here at this data comes from our HR Outlook 2025 study. That's one of the most recent studies we've done. So the data is pretty fresh. The L&D imperative here, bridging critical gaps. If you look at some of the top priorities that our respondents gave us for learning functions, 75%, that's the number one response, are wanting to work on improving alignment between learning strategy and business goals. So everybody in theory or almost everybody in theory understands that this is like a big challenge. And then also close behind that is improving learning measurement and analytics. And then finally, proving that employees can apply learned skills on the job. So sort of beyond just basically measuring it, but actually proving the impact that your learning programs are having. And so, I mean, I think that these are quite striking pieces of data here. Essentially, if you're trying to do if you're worried about doing number 3 here, you're probably not doing number 2. You're probably not, if you're worried about proving that people can do the skills that they've learned, you're probably not measuring it effectively. And if you're not measuring it effectively, you're also probably misaligned on your strategy. And so I think that really paints a strong picture of where a lot of organizations are today. Seeing a ton of, thanks everybody for saying hi. I just saw like 25 chat responses came in, so I was worried that like I had some filter on that made me look like a cat, like that congressman from a while ago. Like, rest assured, I am not a cat. Anyways, thanks for everybody being so vocal. So digging a little bit deeper on here to sort of the measurement mismatch, we call it. Roughly half of organizations today are using performance results to validate learning effectiveness. And 35% are using those results to validate the ROI of learning, and 30% are using that to justify L&D budget requests and future investments in learning. So, I mean, I think that what comes through here is that like, if your measurement is in a silo, if it's all focused on the stuff that we in L&D might care about, where it's like, completion rates, satisfaction scores, all those, all those things that we traditionally expect to see in a learning and development functions dashboard, is it, like, we got to ask ourselves, does the business care about that? I mean, maybe we shouldn't care about that even either. I think that there's an opportunity for a big realignment on how we measure ourselves. I mean, some of those things might matter to us. Some of those things might be really important for learning and development, looking at their internal operations and saying, like, this isn't running as efficiently as it could be, or why are people dropping off so much in this point in the online course or whatever it is. Like, that might be really important for you. But if you're trying to justify your investment to business leaders, they don't care about that. They care about whether it translated into impact on the line. So before we get to our first poll question, I just wanted to pause there and give our panelists an opportunity to chime in on what I went through so far.
Well, hey, good afternoon, team. I'll jump in, Alan. Hey, team, it's great to see you all. Matt Mason with Truist, have the opportunity to lead the talent operations team in our model. I've got talent, classic talent, and also learning under my umbrella, just so as you hear me talk, you understand where I'm coming from. But these numbers are becoming increasingly more important to the business. In our model, we're working like crazy to make sure that the work that we're doing, that we're reporting out to the business, how it's impacting them. And something that I'll be talking a lot about today is learning the language of the business, learning how to talk the language of the business and what matters. And so That 30% performance to justify budgets, we do the same thing. We report out as much as we can of how we've impacted things back to the bottom line. So that's been our experience.
It's a good feedback, and I think the word justify is actually relevant, which is unfortunate, but just the reality as well. When you look at what's happening in the industry with just transformation in business in general, it's putting a lot of pressure on other functions that need to transform as well. And talent and learning haven't been at the top of that ladder historically. But I think it's very opportunistic because it's forcing our industry to change and transform and think about business goals. And if we're in higher ed or K-12 learning, it's different. It's really about those learning outcomes. But when you're in the corporate world and you're part of an organization, whether it's for-profit or non-for-profit, impact really matters. Being aligned to the business goals and working together towards those North Star metrics really matters. And if you're not, then that's when it becomes problematic and you lose trust from business partners and from the business. And, some research on our end, $130 billion is spent on L&D programs. So that's money that flows through all of our fingers. Only 25%, so less than 25%, is judged to be spent effectively. But then when you talk to teams, 47% of them say that they don't have financial resources. 44% are saying that they're experiencing headcount shortages. But then again, less than 25% are capable of measuring. So don't you think that if that number increased to 80%, that we could measure 80%, that we could actually justify the spend, and we would be able to increase the capacity and the needs? And to do that, it's around alignment to business goals. That's what the business really wants to talk about.
Ryan, that's interesting you brought that up. I was a guest lecturer last week at UNC Charlotte class, as an instructional design class, and they asked me, they said, how do you know, or how can we find out if we're making an impact on the business? And I said, go ask the business. Go ask the business leader, what I'm doing for you, how is it changing performance? If they can't answer the question, you probably need to restructure your strategy and how you spend your time.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think we overthink it, Matt. And, I don't know if you've ever been to one of my workshops, to the audience, you probably hear me talk in analogies sometimes, but I sometimes talk about that show Undercover Boss. So, the reality is not all CEOs will send a strategic memo to the company. Here are our goals. And when that doesn't happen, you have to become an undercover boss and go and interview stakeholders and talk to people on what they're hearing is the right impact and most important things that the business is trying to solve. Hopefully you have access to business goals. If you're a public company, then you can just get the reports online and kind of do investigation work that way. But it really means you have to roll up your sleeves and get in the weeds to understand what the company's most strategic objectives are, who's losing sleep and why. And your job is just, how do I help the company not lose sleep so we can align our investment thesis, our strategic plans that we're going to do as a talent and learning team to increase probability of success for the organization and move the needle together.
Absolutely. I think those are great. You both raise really powerful points. I like the idea of being the undercover boss. Although I guess you don't all have to dress up in wigs or whatever. I always like that when the guy transforms from a billionaire into a janitor or something, and they give him a missing tooth. So our first poll question is right here. We're gonna open it up, and really it's just a pretty straightforward thing. We just want to get, what is your biggest challenge in demonstrating L&D value? There's data visibility, misaligned objectives, resource constraints. We already talked about some of these, technology integration, don't have the data analysis skills, speed to market, a poorly understood build, borrow, buy model. Basically, like, how is your organization decided? How's your learning function deciding how to create and execute the learning content and the learning goals that you have? Like, are you outsourcing everything and that's getting too expensive, and people are looking at that, or are you trying to do everything in-house when maybe a little bit of extra consulting help would be helpful for you? So, and then of course, time constraints, everybody's favorite. So I'm going to leave that open for a few more seconds, and then looks like we've got. Okay, great. Ivy, let's share the poll results. We got about 60% participation there. Okay, so I'm going to have Ryan jump in on this. What's your first impressions here on our results?
Yeah, so it's interesting that misaligned objectives and poor data visibility come in at the top of the list, because that's generally what we see as well. The lack of access to data, and actually the lack of access to data is because of the poor alignment to objectives. So a lot of times people think about doing measurement as an aftermath. It's something we do at the end of the program. And before you spend even one shiny penny, and I'm in Canada, so a loonie, which is worth a penny right now, but before you spend any time or money on executing a program, you need to really understand what business goal is this aligning to, which is fundamentally the reason why you're prioritizing on even working on that program in the first place, and work alongside the business partner who will help you in partnership drive impact by solving this problem for the business, to define what the objectives that you want to measure are going to be. And you do it in partnership. And then you take it a step further and you say, and how are we going to measure against those objectives? What data are you going to be able to share back with us to show evidence of effectiveness and ROI? And then guess what? You just got access to data, and you got a commitment from the business partner to get access to data before you even spent one shiny loonie on the project. So those two are very correlated. Objectives up front get you to high quality data at the back end.
Matt, what about you? What's your impression here?
I'm with Ryan. I think if as a leader or even an instructional designer or wherever you are in the business, if you can't align the work that you're doing up to your department and department's department and ultimately the enterprise, you shouldn't be working on it. And that's just a good place to start with dollars and cents in conversation with your boss and with others. I'm not a big believer in throwaway work. I think it really has to, really apply. The other I would say is poor data visibility. One of the things I've done and been successful with is, the data doesn't always live in easily captured systems. And what we've done well is, as we're partnering with the business and we talk about performance improvement and we talk about how we're going to measure that, almost always they have the data. And so as part of our charter, we put in there that they're going to help us with the measurement, and we work with them to help build out those measurement goals. And I've been, when you get them involved, it's another great leadership principle. Those who are involved are more willing to sponsor and be engaged. It's gone well. So that's how I found ways to get at the data we're looking for.
Yeah, no, that's a great that's great advice there. I think that it's that thing of like they talk about this a lot in like mentoring or just trying to like learn your craft, where if you just ask somebody who has what you want, the information you want, a lot of the time they're actually, they're actually excited to tell you about it, or excited to that you're asking, because like maybe nobody's asked them about that from your department in a long time, and they're like, I'd love to tell you what's going on here and help you out with that. I'd love to make a bigger connection between what you do and what we do. So thank you for that. I think that we've got another poll here, and I saw your comment, Tracy, that that first one needed to be multi-select, but that was intentional. We wanted you to be forced to pick the thing that is the most challenging. Although I agree, there's probably a lot of you that had like 4 or 5 or 6 of these things on their radar as a big pain point. So this next one is, however, is going to be a multi-select option. And we're really wanting to get a sense of like where you feel your biggest opportunities for improvement in L&D are. Strategic planning, fairly self-explanatory. Resource allocation, same thing there. Your technology ecosystem, process standardization, impact measurement, upskilling your L&D team. So, I mean, all of these are probably areas that could move the lever, but try and think about like, your first 3 or 4 on your list that where you say like, yeah, we could really use some help there.
I'm predicting the answers, so I'm very excited to see them, to see if I was right or not.
Oh, and Tracy just asked, I want to address Tracy's question here regarding data. Could it also be that there's a lot of data, but that it's not synthesized or understood, or it's siloed? Panel, what do you think of that?
Yeah, there's lots of challenges with data, and then you start mixing different types of data across platforms. How do you centralize that? And do your day job at the same time? It's a challenge.
Yeah, I would say the more data, the better, but you need a data strategy so you know what to talk about. So, and Matt taught me on a lot of webinars we've done together, the power of storytelling. And so, again, it starts with your business goal, which leads to the why are we doing this, which leads to the investment. Are we willing to spend the money? Is this important enough? Are we going to get the impact because you worked with a partner on the objectives? To what data are we going to collect, and then what story do we want to tell? One head of learning that we worked with said, Ryan, we built all these dashboards, and like we were so excited about when we showed it to our leaders, and they like just glanced at it, and there was not even any conversation on it. Like, I don't know what happened. I said, well, did you invite them to use the data to make decisions with you and your team? And he's like, oh. And then he said that they did this exercise for decision on decision quality to make strategic decisions. And basically they invited them, they slimmed down the data, and they said, this is what we're seeing, and why we're making certain recommendations, but we want to invite you to really make a quality decision with us because it has a material difference which way we go. And that just opened up the room to collaboration, and they used the data for value creation. So it's a significant part of it is to have a strategy and the story you want to tell as well.
Excellent. So we've got the results now, and I think Ivy has shared them. I think we've got 2 big winners here. Ryan, do they line up with what you were predicting?
Yeah, except I thought process standardization would be a little higher, but the rest, yes. And the reason I thought that is because that's how you get access to the data, is through the process workflows as well, at least operationally. And I'm glad to see upskilling of the L&D team being high. I predict that one to be a little lower because in our profession, we're so focused on the workforce and upskilling the workforce that we forget to upskill ourselves. And with all the transformation happening in the industry, you need to really tighten up your business acumen to talk in the language of the business, and that's how you stay ahead and create value together with your partners.
Yeah, what about you, man? What are you seeing here? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, Ryan, I was a little bummed that process standardization wasn't higher, and you and I like to geek out on that stuff, but nonetheless, I digress. I upskilling L&D team. I am a big proponent of leadership matters more than just about everything else. I write about servant leadership several times a week on LinkedIn. If you're not out there, or if you have an interest in reading more about it, feel free to jump into the conversation. But I'm a big believer that upskilling L&D starts with the leader, and great leaders push their people to get better, to be better. To Ryan's point around speaking the language of the business, giving the feedback, but also making the time. And I encourage my folks, once a week or however they want to package it, to spend the time to upskill themselves. We have career and professional plans. Whether they report to me or not, I like to review those, but everybody on the team has one because I want to make sure that we're upskilling. The other piece, I think we're going to get into this a little bit more around strategic planning. I think you have to have a formulaic approach to that that's repeatable, that's enhanceable, and it's something you can communicate simply on a one-pager. And if you're not doing that, or if you can't show that you're doing that, I think it's really challenging in these days where we don't have enough time or talent or budget to do the things we're being asked to do.
Absolutely. So I'm going to move on. Really great questions coming in here, guys. There we go. So we're starting we've already started the discussion point. So this slide is kind of moot, but essentially, we want to get to that. We want to get to that as a group kind of level of what we're talking about, where we're solving some of these challenges, we're exploiting some of these opportunities that we've identified in the poll questions. And I think that has to start with, building strategic alignment. And so, I'm going to throw this out first to Matt, and then I want to get Ryan, but I'm going to do it in that order intentionally. If you were dropped into just a random organization as the new head of learning and development, how would you approach building strategic alignment with your business leaders? Starting at day one, what's your agenda?
Yeah, so one, that would be a blast. I would really, that's good stuff. I like jumping in and learning. My first thing is I want to know, where's the company going? So if it's a public company, getting in and reading the documents, the strategic documents. I want to listen to a couple analyst calls and hear the questions that are being asked about the strategy. And hopefully it's a simple one-page strategy. I want to understand the mission, vision, values of the company, where it's going, the type of business we're doing, and sort of some of the basic metrics. And then I want to understand, for that business person that I'm talking to, or business leaders, I want to understand what's their strategy and how does it align to the enterprise strategy. And I hope to find alignments. Many cases you don't, and that's another conversation for another webinar. But let's assume there is alignment, and then based on that alignment, then we can start having great conversations around what's the work the learning team is doing and how it aligns and the performance and impact that's being made. I'm a huge proponent of annual planning, with that strategic alignment one pager in mind. I'm a big proponent of an annual planning process that starts at about August, that really understands looking at next year. So for us this year in August, we're going to start asking the business leaders, based on 2026 goals that you're predicting and where the company is going strategically, what are you predicting the work you're going to be doing, and how can learning and talent then support you in that? And if the responses aren't in alignment with what the company is going to do, those come off the list. And as we work through that of what we're going to build, buy, borrow, through then into the fall, and we do budgeting. We come out the other side with a plan. So Jan 1, it becomes a very executable process. And that takes time in companies to build that muscle. But when you do, there are a lot of efficiencies gained. And I guarantee you, there's a lot of metrics that you get to share back with how things are aligned and how you move the needle. So that's how I would really drop in, sort of week 1 into an organization to really understand, how they're aligned.
Excellent.
Yeah, I like that. And Matt, this year I'm stealing your playbook to start planning in August, because we started it later and you almost feel rushed near the end of the year, like there's not enough time still. And the power of bottoms up alignment and planning, which takes time, it's a big effort, is super powerful, because and as a leader, or even as a team member, the goal of bottoms up planning is truth telling, trying to find the truth about everything. Yep. So digging. Oh, not a line there. Let's talk about it. Digging. And while you're doing that, you're building your thesis for the strategy, which will inform you how much time things will take, how much money they'll take. That becomes the budget proposal. And when you do that bottoms up planning, if anybody tries to poke holes in the plan, they'll go talk to the business partners, whatnot, and be like, oh yeah, that's important. We met with Matt's team for a long time on that. And it just adds credibility and trust again. Mm-hmm. For me, the 5 steps would be, and I'm cheating because I just wrote an ebook on this, because we launched a feature on strategic alignment, and I'll share the link in here too. But understanding the organization strategy and goals, determining the future skills and capability needs. So risks on those corporate goals, like what's going to prevent the company from doing this. An example might be, we need to do more with less and operate at 150% next year, and we're not hiring anybody. So we need to build an AI strategy. And that's great, but if nobody knows how to use AI in the company and they don't have that skills, you're going to fail at doing that. So the talent and learning team need to have a strategic objective that is aligned to that company goal on how are we going to upskill the organization on AI capabilities. So that's just one example. Assess existing skills and capabilities, and then define your strategic goals and success metrics in collaboration with the business partners. And then lastly, effectively share your strategy. And as Matt said, it needs to be on one page. And in this link that I shared, there's a template for that.
Yeah, one of the things we did that was super fun in this space was, ours approach is a top down, and you start getting business leaders to talk about the things they need help with from talent, from learning, and you put it down on paper, and then you start getting with their lieutenants, and you start then going through things, and things get added. And then you take all of that back to the senior leader. And a lot of times it's fun. The senior leader goes, where did that come from? Oh, so-and-so on your team. We're not doing that. And my guess is, if I took an honesty poll with everybody on the call, the vast majority of us want proactive approaches in how we plan and do things, but most of us are probably unbelievably reactionary. It's wasteful. It's very wasteful. Think about your own finances at home, the way you run your house. There's a lot of preventative maintenance. It's a very proactive approach. And so the same with planning. I would encourage you to flip the script, start in August. It's a 3-year, trust me, it's a 3-year journey to get it to where it feels right. But if you get the businesses to understand it's got to be aligned, it's tied to budget dollars, it works out well. The other thing we even did is we said, we would take a project and do some light sketching out of what it was going to be. And then we applied hours to it. So we were using things like Chapman Alliance and ATD, hours of investment for different deliverables. And we say, if an instructional designer has 2,000 hours a year that they can be used for, how many hours of investment are we asking for? And we only have 10 people to do the work. And then that was a fun conversation back with the businesses. They were going, oh my gosh, we've got 50,000 hours and we've got 2 people. There's no way this is going to work. So then you get into the build, borrow conversation. Again, Dollars and cents is business language. And so when you talk hours and dollars and cents, the business gets excited and they start understanding. But that first year, you kind of have to get them on board. Second year, they're going to be a lot more bought in. And third year is really the magic.
Excellent. And so we'll move on. One thing that I was thinking about too is that like there's all sorts of exercises I could think of that if I were in this situation and I was trying to get to, the bottom of that question of like, how does this ask you're making align to, the goals of the business? I'm thinking about things like the five whys, like that whole concept of like just keep asking why until you get to the root of it, like and it's either going to be a yes or a no, or it's like or maybe somewhere in between, but usually you'll be able to tell like, okay, this is absolutely aligned, or maybe they think their thinking is kind of aligned, but they've taken a left turn here somewhere and we need to like retrack this to something that's actually going to help them do what they solve the problem they think they want to solve, kind of thing. So moving into our next topic here, insights for operational excellence in learning, and with AI, but first I think maybe just like to level set for the audience, what is the business case for Learn Ops and L&D? Ryan, if you want to take that, and then we can go to Matt.
Yeah, and that's exactly how Matt and I met. So I'm sure there'd be common opinions here. But learning and talent organizations, we have been notorious to solving to a process versus thinking about how do our processes all work together to create a holistic operating system. And so an example would be, we're getting requests. We need to manage those requests with some sort of intake. And then rather than being strategic about it, well, like how will requests tie into the next part of the process with prioritization? How do we use requests to help us prioritize with the business goals? We're more reactive, unfortunately. And we say, well, what IT tool can we get our hands on to help us do that? ServiceNow. So now you have ServiceNow. And then you're like, well, we're getting a lot of requests now. We need to manage projects better. What IT tool can we get our hands on for project management? Oh, maybe Smartsheets, or I'm using Excel or something. Before you know it, you're in like 4 to 8 tools. One company, which is a Fortune 100 that we work with, had 13 disparate IT tools before we helped them take a step back and see exactly why they have no access to data and why they're so misaligned. It's because you have people bouncing in and out of tools. And when you tie that on top of complex governance, especially as a big organization, there is so much chaos. And that's the business case for learning operations, is a holistic way of your workflows working together. That's exactly how you get operational excellence. And that's exactly how you can get to an AI-powered journey in the midterm or long term, is because the workflows work together. So you think of adding agentic workflows or operators on top of that. It's easy for technology to do work for you then, because you made it easy. There's no AI if you're using 14 tools. It's not going to work.
Yeah, well, it's that kind of thing of like, if you're on one hand, you're trying to deploy more advanced AI solutions, but you've got those 14 disparate systems. Like pretty soon the human ends up working for the AI. Like it's like, oh, here, like I'll give you this input that you need to do that analysis, or I'll give you this that you need to do that. And then it's like, it's completely the upside down version of what is actually promising about using AI to improve efficiencies and operationalize it, is that you're, human beings at the top and then AI down here executing those simple tasks. What about you, Matt? I want to bring you in here too.
Yeah, so in my space, we're in 2025, we're focused on 4 items for the talent operations group. We're focused on making things self-service. So it's great to reach out and ask someone a question, but that's costly. And every back and forth, there's an FTE time cost. And so we've put in several tools in the last month. We put in a talent operations intake for our team to be able to manage what flows in, but also an external, what we're calling our partner resource center, which are commonly asked questions. We just demoed it for our retail business. So think 12,000 of our finest out in the field and the folks that support them. If they have questions that typically flow through to the talent operations team, where can they 24/7 get a response? So self-service is huge. Automation. We're automating as much as we possibly can, from data to workflows. We're looking critically at all of our processes within talent. Simplification. It's one of my mottos. I should probably sell the t-shirt, but simple. It's got to be simple. If it's not simple, it's not going to be executable. And then the last thing for me and the team this year is putting the right talent in the right place, the right leaders. And I'm a huge proponent of investment in frontline leaders. I think we over-index as learning professionals of what's the latest, greatest shiny object, and we forget that our frontline leaders have to do the work. In fact, I've got a post coming out, I think later this week, around the secret sauce to AI and skills strategies are our people. Our frontline leaders have got to be in place, and so that's why it's so important for me this year. And so that really brings us to a place of centralization and some real measurable efficiency gains in the operational excellence space.
Yeah, and I'm just curious, as far as the whole, because part of what we are talking about here is a learning and talent management technology strategy here. Obviously, I think we all agree that centralizing and integrating all the data you can so that it's in one place, easily accessible by humans or AI, and it's that makes all of those efficiencies, like you're talking about, Matt, self-service automation and right people in the right place, a lot easier to do, because it's so much of it is a visibility and access issue. But how do you guys think about advising people that might be in the audience that are trying to make that kind of decision of okay, I know I need to consolidate. Do I need to, just go, I won't share any names, but just go straight with some end-to-end solution that just is, promising to incorporate all of your data in one place. It's all supposedly in the same environment and talks to each other real well. Or is it feasible to do some of those, to just have a really solid kind of integration between all those data sources, so that okay, it's not the same as if it's just one system, but I can pretty easily get what I need. Do you guys have a strong feeling about where that's going, or how people need to be thinking about it?
So at Truist, besides being an amazing company, they have done a really nice job of centralizing data. So I don't have a lot of the siloed problems that I've experienced at other organizations. So I'm really fortunate. We also, in our HR department, we have a group that does an amazing job. They are data analysts, scientists who pull data together, that understand how it works, and they're fantastic humans that consult well. On my own team, I have an individual who their job is to tell the story with data. So that's how I'm aligned. And I would say, while my situation is different, if you're just start with understanding what's the business perform. What does that leader that you're building the training for expect your training to do differently and change performance, and then go find a really simple metric to show that. It doesn't have to be complex. It's got to be better than butts and seats, but it doesn't have to be all sorts of regression analysis and you know, you don't have to go nuts with it. So I would say start simple and build big. When you prove yourself and you ask for money, people will tend to give you money because you're proving proving out your business case.
Very nice. What about you, Ryan?
Yeah, I'm just a big fan of working smarter, not harder.
Yep.
So if you're able to get better access to data because things are working together, then I would do that. The reality is, depending on the complex needs for the organization, a lot of our customers, for example, that have complex needs, they'll extract information from Cognota into broader data lakes with their data science teams. But then the ones that don't have data science teams, they can kind of get what they need with Cognota, especially with some functionality that we're about to release, which is really exciting. So there's no one size fits all answer. I think it depends on your strategy again, and you'll always hear me going back to strategy and goals because it's the source of truth for like 99% of decision making.
Yeah, that's good. And also, I think a nice highlight Matt brought in there was like, it was kind of like, think about where, in addition to keeping it simple and just trying to be like, what am I trying to solve for in this situation? What's one metric I could get that would show we're moving the needle or not on this with this program? And then also like taking stock of like, okay, where am I on this continuum? Like, is data highly accessible to me and I've got an embarrassment of riches in that, or is it like, we are starting off from a point of 14 different systems, and so how do I make it so maybe it's 13 or maybe
well, the reality too is that you might not even have a system, and you can still get access to data by having strong business partnerships.
Sure.
And working on things that align to business goals. And if you just do those two things, like, you're going to get access to data. That's the easiest technology in the world. It's called being a human being and talking to your colleague and somebody who you should be working with because you're trying to solve a problem together. So that's why I'm saying that the industry overcomplicates this, and it's like, just let's get back to the basics of things that we learn when we're growing up, which is like being a good human being and having a conversation with somebody and digging deep and solving a problem together. And that actually makes work way more fun anyways.
And on the fun, go figure it out yourself too, right? This is maybe funny, maybe not funny for some, but a cup of coffee and some chocolate chip cookies. Find the person in that's either really good with data, or find the data scientist and say, "Can you help me out?" Right? Help me. Like, if I provide the information and I start thinking about it, can you give me some guidance? You'll learn a new skill. It makes yourself more marketable, but sometimes we just gotta farm our own food, and right, because again, it's about showing the ROI on the performance. I call it ROLI, return on learning investment. If you can demonstrate that simply, you're going to be a hero.
I agree. And there's actually this saying in entrepreneurship, probably true to anything in life. Ask for money, you get feedback. Ask for feedback, you get money. So actually, if you work with your business partnerships and you let them in and you collaborate and you're asking for feedback, they're going to help you build the business case to get money if it's important enough. We see that a lot of the times too. And please, please, please don't make your data source butts in the seat and try and build a story around that, because you will lose credibility and trust with business people who don't care about butts in the seat. They care about what's the impact on the business, how much time and money did we spend, and what are we getting back for that. That's where we have to really be able to talk to nowadays.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at
Data significance matters. I always chuckle when someone brings a presentation and they're claiming success at a 0.75% increase. I'm like, that there's so much slop in the data. Find people, find the right tools, find experts, join groups in different platforms, and get smart on it.
Yeah. And also, I mean, another thing that's exciting is that like some of the, our ability to do, to analyze data without having to, or do at least simple data analysis without having to be a data scientist is increasing a lot. And like, there's a lot you can get a lot farther with just knowing the right questions to ask the data rather than like knowing all the ins and outs of chi-squares and regression analysis and all of that. Like you can get a lot farther with just like understanding going back to, if you understand the strategy, if you're understand what the learning function is doing, you can ask really good questions of the people involved and the data that's involved and get somewhere a lot faster than you could have, even 4 or 5 years ago. So we're coming up close to the end of our discussion here, but I do want to give an opportunity for us to cover. We've got one more poll question. We've also got this topic that I do want to get there. So some lessons from the field. I'm going to go to you, Matt, first. Like what are some examples, like, so, whether it's a story or just sort of a mini case study of how you have applied some of what we're talking about here today?
Yeah, I'll give you one that's going on right now. So within my group, I also have compulsory required training, which if you work for a bank, you know what that is. You gotta take a course on how to use the paper towel machine. Just that's how banks work. So we said for part of that required training, we'll get into all the specifics. We said we have need to reduce the training by 5%. Some of you may say 5%, that's not a lot. Well, in our space, that's hours of reduction of time. So we have a goal. We are going to be reducing required training at Truist in our enterprise training, required training by 5% this year. It's also an HR goal. How did I get that goal and how did I get it there? Well, I brought it forward. I said, hey, team, I think we're going to have to stretch a little bit on this. We try every year, but let's put something on paper. It got so wildly popular and that our CHRO got a hold of it and said, yep, let's do this. So we're measuring it. We've already started making an impact on that by consulting with the business to say that's not required training, or our existing training in that bucket. Right now, we have a 10-question assessment for no skill that we're trying to teach somebody. It's an acknowledgement. So we're reducing content out of a course and moving to an acknowledgement. So right now the team is excelling in that space. Q1, we're already ahead of the curve. So, but again, it's wouldn't be able to do that without simplification, automation, the right data that we have access to, and a great set of leaders that are going to make it happen.
Excellent. Brian, what about yourself?
Just to take the time to take a step back, to do an audit of your maturity as an L&D and talent team. Again, bottoms up planning to know the truth. That will help you understand where you can make improvements along the way. If you need to figure out like, well, how do we do that? Just reach out and, we can help you. We actually do maturity assessments and there's no cost to doing that.
Excellent. So we got one more poll and then we're going to hopefully answer a question or two. And then we got prizes, glittering prizes. So this last poll, based on our discussion of today, what's your next priority? You got to pick one. Sorry, Tracy, I'm going to force you into a box again, and you're going to have to pick one, even though you want to pick 5. But are we reviewing our governance structure, assessing our resource allocation? measurement, technology, stakeholder communication, or you just don't know? That sounds like if you don't know, you should probably also be chatting Ryan after this on LinkedIn. Or like Ryan's going to tell you what you should be doing if you don't know. So I'm going to give it just a few more seconds and then we'll go. Okay, we can share the results now. I'm happy with that. So what do we think, fellas? Measurement framework update and enhancing stakeholder communication. So it's measurement and communication with the stakeholders that people are going to prioritize most or first.
Ryan, you want to take a stab?
Yeah, I mean, I like the answers because hopefully that means enhancing stakeholder communication upfront in order to update your measurement framework and make measurement a lot easier. I wish there was more focus on governance. I'm a big believer that governance powers your strategy and then powers your operations, which is how you do everything else. So that, there's common models, centralized, federated, decentralized, and people pick their operating models or governance models too much ad hoc versus setting it up in an agile way where it's like, okay, this is our business goal. And because of that, we have to build a centralized governance model at least for the next 3 years, but let's set it up in a way so if for some reason a new CEO comes in the company and changes the strategy, we can pivot how we're operating, and so that's your foundation of how you work, and that powers how you manage business partnerships, which is the stakeholder communication, and how you manage your measurement frameworks. So it all sits on governance.
Yeah, and I like the communication one. I think it's good. Have better conversation with your stakeholders and the senior executives. Ask them for coffee and ask the question, what bothers you that we can help solve together and start that great relationship. They're just people, and they want to solve these problems, and you can be helpful. The other one is the measurement framework. Here's my caution. Measurement frameworks are a lot like the individual in the office that likes to brag about their 7-layer chip dip and it's the greatest in the world. Shut up and bring it to work. Like, if you're not going to show up with the dip and let us all try it and see it and experience it, a framework is just something on paper. So my team has frameworks, but we publish regular reports on that framework, how it's evolving, how we're measuring against it. And so you gotta part 2 of it is you gotta show how it's being used.
Absolutely. We're almost at time, so I do want to see if we got some questions here before we close out. Lots of great comments here, lots of great feedback. Several people saying governance is their number one. So it's a small but mighty group that are coming back on that. This is a comment from Brad. It says, regarding data folks in your group, I found that letting people know what you're trying to achieve and or what challenge you're trying to overcome invites them to be part of the solution. So, I mean, I definitely agree on that. I think it's, a lot of what we're talking about is kind of like almost psychology and communication strategies of like, how do you get people invested in what you're trying to do? Like, how you bridge those gaps that we talked about at the beginning between strategic alignment. So, okay, I think we've got, I think that's it. I'm sorry we didn't get to everybody's question. Lots of great feedback, definitely. But Ryan and the team at Cognota are going to have, of course, the Q&A log, so they'll be able to follow up with anybody who has lingering questions. But now it's So I'm going to skip past our Q&A slide. And first, I'm going to let Ivy tell us who's winning the Brandon Hall Group Excellence in Action Award submission here.
Thank you, Alan. I'm excited to announce that the winner of today's raffle winning a free Excellence in Action program submission is Carrie Butler. Congratulations, Carrie. We will be reaching out shortly with more information.
All right.
Exciting.
And then, Ryan, I'm going to leave it up to you to announce who's going to get the LearnOps Academy certification.
Awesome. And so the LearnOps Academy is the industry's first accredited program to get certified in learning operations, which is a growing field. And it's worth $1,000, so it's exciting. It's designed by 30 industry experts, which is even more exciting. And the winner is Steve Urquhart. I think that's how you pronounce it.
All right.
Excellent. Congratulations, Steve. All right, so winners, you will be getting follow-up from respective parties on how to claim your prize. And then I just want to give a big thank you to both the folks at Cognota, our panelists, and also thank you to the audience for joining us today. It really does improve the quality when you guys are so engaged. So we appreciate that. And as we mentioned at the top of the hour, you will receive a PDF of the presentation and a link to the recording within about 24 hours. So make sure to keep an eye out for that, and stay on the lookout for more Brandon Hall Group webinars. If you like this one, we got lots more coming in the coming months. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Dane.
Brandon Hall.